Rebecca Evans sat on the cold leather bench, her fingers wrapped tightly around the fabric of her gray skirt. The air in the courtroom was stiff with silence, broken only by the occasional tapping of a lawyer's pen or the shuffling of papers. She stared at the judge's raised desk, waiting, dreading, hoping. Dear viewers, welcome to our channel. Subscribe to receive more stories every day. Across the courtroom, Charles Whitmore adjusted his navy blue tie and gave his attorney a calm, knowing nod. He looked every bit the polished corporate executive, confident, composed, and, most of all, convincing. Rebecca knew that look. It was the same one he'd worn the day he told her he was leaving, for good, and taking Lily with him. Her stomach turned. "Ms. Evans," the judge began, "you understand that this hearing is to determine final custody of your daughter?" Rebecca stood, the blood draining from her face. "Yes, Your Honor." Her attorney, Valerie Cruz, placed a steadying hand on Rebecca's arm as she rose beside her. Valerie had been her only anchor in the storm, a sharp, no-nonsense legal force who somehow still carried warmth. Judge Mendelsohn adjusted his glasses. "Mr. Whitmore has presented a compelling argument as to why full custody should be awarded to him. Evidence of instability, housing insecurity, and an inability to provide consistent care. Do you have anything further to add before I rule?" Rebecca opened her mouth to speak, but her voice caught in her throat. It hadn't always been like this. There was a time when Rebecca and Charles were the couple. She, a passionate arts educator at the community center, and he, a rising star in corporate litigation. Their home was full of color, laughter, and dreams whispered across late-night glasses of wine. Then came Lily, a miracle after 3 years of trying. But as Charles climbed the ranks of Whitmore and Steele, the law firm founded by his father, his presence at home dwindled. The man she married faded into someone she barely recognized, a calculating strategist who viewed life in leverage and outcomes. The first slap of betrayal wasn't an affair. It was the mortgage notice she found in a drawer, months behind, despite his 6-figure salary. Then came the lies, the gaslighting, and finally the mistress. A junior associate, barely out of law school, with sharp cheekbones and a sharper tongue. Rebecca left, taking Lily and little else. The trial had gone on for 6 weeks. 6 endless weeks of character assassination. Charles's team paraded expert witnesses, former neighbors, even a former friend of Rebecca's who testified she was emotionally erratic after the separation. They painted her as unstable, overly emotional, and incapable of offering Lily the structured environment she needed. And worst of all, Charles claimed that Lily had expressed fear of staying with her mother. That broke Rebecca, because she knew her daughter. She knew that was a lie. Valerie had tried to counter every accusation, but Charles's influence was vast. His legal team was strategic, ruthless. They discredited every witness for Rebecca, twisted every piece of evidence, and made her out to be a flailing woman grasping at a child she was using as a crutch. What they didn't know, what no one in that courtroom knew, was that Lily had her own story to tell, and she had a plan. Lily had been quiet since the custody hearings began, dutifully staying with her court-appointed guardian, never once speaking out of turn. She was only 10, but she had always been unusually perceptive, watching, listening, waiting. She hated the lies. She hated the way her father smiled in court and gave her a stiff, awkward hug afterward, whispering, "Just a little longer, sweetheart. Then everything will be normal again." It didn't feel normal. Felt like betrayal. Lily had told her mother something a week ago, whispered between sobs at the end of a supervised visit. "He said if I tell the truth, no one will believe me. That I'll get taken away from you forever." Rebecca had cried herself to sleep that night. But Lily had done something neither of them had expected. She borrowed her guardian's old iPod Touch, the one she used for games, and learned how to use the voice memo feature. She carried it with her during visits with her father, tucked in her coat pocket. The night it happened, Charles was furious. Lily had refused to eat dinner. She missed her mother, and when she asked to call her, Charles snapped. "You don't get to talk to her whenever you want, Lily. That's not how this works." But I live with her, Lily said. Not for long. He didn't see the blinking red dot in her coat pocket. You're going to tell the court that you're scared of her. That she yells, throws things, and you don't feel safe. Do you understand me? Silence. Do you understand me? Yes. And if you don't, I'll make sure you never see her again. You'll go to boarding school. Far away. Somewhere she can't reach you. That was the moment. The moment Lily knew what she had to do. It wasn't just about being scared. It was about truth. Back in the courtroom, Rebecca's heart pounded in her chest as the judge adjusted his papers. Valerie leaned over and whispered, "We're out of moves unless a miracle walks through that door." That's when Lily stood up. Her guardian tried to tug her back down, but the judge raised a hand. "Let the child speak." Lily walked slowly to the center of the courtroom, clutching the old iPod in her hand. "Your Honor," she said, her voice trembling but clear, "I have something I want to play for you. It's really important." Charles stood abruptly. "She's a child. This is highly irregular." Judge Mendelsohn silenced him with a look. Valerie stepped forward. "May I assist in playing the audio, Your Honor?" The judge nodded. Rebecca couldn't breathe. The courtroom was utterly still. Valerie connected the iPod to a speaker. Lily handed over the device, her tiny fingers trembling as she did. "Go ahead," the judge said. The recording played. Static crackled. Then Charles's voice filled the room. Clear, cold, unmistakable. "You're going to tell the court that you're scared of her." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Charles turned pale. His lawyer stood frozen. Rebecca clutched the edge of the table. "You'll go to boarding school. Far away." The recording ended. Silence. Then a single sob from Rebecca. Judge Mendelsohn removed his glasses and leaned forward. "I'm calling a recess. When we resume, I will address the veracity of this evidence and the implications it has for Mr. Whitmore's petition." The bailiff led Charles out of the courtroom, ignoring his lawyer's desperate whispering. Valerie looked at Rebecca with something between disbelief and pride. "You didn't know she had that, did you?" Rebecca shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "She did it on her own. She may have just saved you both." By the time court resumed the next morning, the world outside had changed. The recording had leaked, no one knew how, and social media was ablaze. "Corporate lawyer threatens child to win custody" was trending nationwide. News vans crowded the courthouse steps. Reporters shoved microphones toward anyone remotely connected to the case. Valerie Cruz pushed through the throng with Rebecca, and Lily flanked on either side. "No comments," she repeated like a shield. But the flashes, the noise, it was overwhelming. Rebecca could see it in Lily's eyes. Fear. "We'll get through this," Rebecca whispered as she squeezed her daughter's hand. "You did the right thing." Lily didn't respond. Her face was pale. "Hello." Because in exposing her father's manipulation, she hadn't just told the truth. She'd betrayed him. Judge Mendelsohn didn't waste time. "The audio recording presented yesterday has been verified as authentic. Mr. Whitmore's attempt to manipulate testimony from a minor has deeply concerned this court. I am hereby suspending all visitation and custody rights pending further investigation." Charles's lawyer tried to object, but the judge was firm. "Mr. Whitmore will be held in contempt if he attempts to contact his daughter during this process. Furthermore, the court will explore possible criminal charges relating to coercion of a minor and falsification of testimony." Rebecca's breath caught. She had won, for now. But she didn't feel victorious. Because Charles didn't look broken. He looked angry. The man she once loved was gone. After the hearing, Valerie revealed that Charles had filed a separate lawsuit, a civil defamation case, accusing Rebecca of orchestrating the recording and spreading false information to damage his reputation. "He's going scorched earth," Valerie said. "This is about power now, not custody. He wants to crush you." Rebecca sat back in disbelief. "But he was caught on tape." "Doesn't matter. He's spinning it as emotional duress. Claims he was venting in private. Never intended to follow through. Says you manipulated Lily into recording him. Rebecca laughed bitterly. That's insane. It is. But he's rich. And angry. That's a dangerous combination. Later that night, after Lily had fallen asleep in the small guest room of Valerie's townhouse, Rebecca sat at the kitchen table with a glass of wine. Everything was spiraling again. What if he wins this new case? She asked. Valerie sighed. He won't. But it's going to get uglier before it gets better. Rebecca stared into the wine glass. He wasn't always like this. Valerie tilted her head. You ever wonder what made him snap? Rebecca nodded. I thought I knew him. But it's like he's hollow inside now. He paused. There's something else. What? His mother. She called me a week ago. Said I needed to get out before something worse happened. That Charles was becoming like his father. Valerie frowned. His father? He died when Charles was 14. Suicide. But his mom said it wasn't what it looked like. The next day, Rebecca drove out to her old storage unit. She hadn't been back since she left the house. Most of what she owned had been shoved into boxes and bins, locked away with memories too painful to face. She opened a dusty bin labeled Home Office. Inside was the usual junk. Papers, old chargers, forgotten knickknacks. Then she found it. Plain black notebook. Unlabeled. Unremarkable. She flipped through it. Meetings. All in Charles's neat handwriting. But then, midway through, the tone shifted. Told Mom not to ask questions about the locked room. Found a letter in Dad's desk. It wasn't suicide. Rebecca's fingers froze. She turned the page. If anyone finds out what really happened, they'll take everything. Rebecca spent hours reading the journal. Most of it chronicled Charles's final years in college, the early days at the firm, and his obsession with legacy. But it also hinted at something darker. The trust only activates if Lily is with me full-time. Otherwise, it reverts to Mom. Rebecca's pulse quickened. That was it. That's why he'd fought so hard for custody. Not love, not protection, not structure. Money. She showed the notebook to Valerie, who immediately ordered a private investigator to look into the Whitmore family trust. 2 days later, the investigator called. You're going to want to sit down. The Whitmore Trust was enormous. Nearly $20 million in assets tied up in a complex web of conditions. But the one that stood out was this. Upon the birth of a direct descendant, half of the trust shall be held in escrow for said minor until age 21. Access shall be granted to the biological father if he assumes full legal and residential custody by the child's 11th birthday. Rebecca stared at the document. He was running out of time. Valerie nodded grimly. This was never about Lily. It was about the trust. Rebecca felt sick. He would have taken her away, sent me spiraling, and cashed in. Valerie leaned in. And the best part, this document isn't sealed. It's admissible in court. Armed with the trust document and the journal, Valerie filed for emergency protection and submitted both as supplemental evidence in the ongoing hearing. Charles's attorney fought hard to get them dismissed, but the judge allowed it. Under oath, Charles admitted the trust existed but denied it influenced his actions. He even tried to claim Rebecca had forged the journal, until forensic handwriting analysis confirmed it was his. Piece by piece, the illusion crumbled. But just when it seemed like everything was over, Rebecca received an unexpected call. It was from Marissa, Charles's ex-mistress. Marissa looked different on the video call. Tired, worn, and scared. I need to tell you something, she said. I can't keep carrying it. What? Charles didn't just want Lily. He wanted me to testify that you were violent. That you hit Lily. He said he'd pay me $200,000. Rebecca's jaw clenched. I said no. That's when he leaked my emails to the firm. Got me fired. Marissa's hands trembled. I still have the messages. I can forward them to your lawyer. Why are you doing this now? Marissa's eyes welled up. Because you were never the crazy one. I was. Valerie submitted Marissa's emails the next morning. Combined with the journal, the trust documents, and the tape, the court had seen enough. Charles's custody petition was dismissed with prejudice. A separate investigation into financial fraud and witness tampering was opened. And Rebecca was finally granted sole legal and physical custody of Lily. But the story wasn't over. Because in his final hearing appearance, as he was being led away for contempt, Charles looked at Rebecca and whispered, "You think this is over? You have no idea what you've started." The months that followed the courtroom victory were anything but peaceful. Though Charles had been discredited, he hadn't been charged yet. The DA was moving slowly, citing the complexity of the financial and legal web around the trust and Charles's dealings. And despite being stripped of custody, he still had money, connections, and spite. But Rebecca was focused on healing. For herself. For Lily. They'd moved into a small townhome across the city. Humble, quiet, safe. Still, the shadows lingered. Lily had nightmares. Sometimes she flinched when people raised their voices. Other times she seemed numb, especially when she saw her father's face on a screen. News updates, financial scandals, and online smear campaigns all bearing the Whitmore name. One afternoon, Rebecca found Lily staring at the fireplace, holding the journal, the one Charles had written all those years ago. "I don't want this anymore," Lily said softly. "Can we burn it?" Rebecca hesitated. It was evidence, proof, power. But it was also poison. She nodded. Together, they lit the fire and watched the pages curl into ash. 2 weeks later, a manila envelope arrived. No return address. Inside was a single page. A photocopy of a birth certificate, and a handwritten note. Rebecca's breath caught as she read it. "Charles isn't Lily's biological father. You always suspected. You were right." She stared at the name listed under father. Daniel Keller. Her college boyfriend. The one who left abruptly after she found out she was pregnant. She hadn't told him. She hadn't told anyone, not even Charles. Lily was born months after she married Charles, and the timelines had overlapped just enough to bury the truth. Rebecca staggered to the kitchen table and sat down, the page trembling in her hands. "What the hell is this?" The next day, Valerie ran a trace on the document. The certificate was real. It had been pulled from sealed hospital records with a subpoena. Only someone with access to family court databases, or Charles's level of influence, could have unearthed it. Why would he send this now? Rebecca asked. Valerie frowned. He's lost everything. Maybe this is his Hail Mary. But what could he gain from proving he isn't Lily's father? Valerie looked grim. If he's not the father, he may argue that he never had the legal right to file for custody in the first place, and therefore you committed fraud by letting him sign the birth certificate. Rebecca's heart dropped. He could try to flip the charges on me. Valerie nodded. He's that petty, that dangerous. Rebecca had no choice. She sat Lily down and explained everything, gently, carefully. I loved Charles when I thought he was the father, but I think I made a mistake back then. A big one. Lily didn't cry. She didn't shout. She just asked, "Do I have to meet him?" Rebecca shook her head. "No, not unless you want to." But Lily said something that surprised her. "I want to know who I am. That's all." So, with a trembling heart, Rebecca ordered the paternity test. It came back a week later. 99.99% match. Daniel Keller. Rebecca found Daniel through a private investigator. He was living in Oregon, working at a non-profit legal aid center. He had never married, never had another child. When Rebecca called, he went silent for nearly a minute. "You had a daughter?" "Yes. And she's mine." "Yes." Daniel flew out within the week. He met Lily in the park. No lawyers, no tension. Just a man and a child slowly building a bridge of understanding. Lily didn't call him Dad, but she let him sit beside her. They fed ducks, They talked about music. And when she handed him a drawing of a family with 2 trees growing side by side, he cried. But the peace didn't last. Charles returned to court, this time with a full team of attorneys, and filed a motion to vacate his financial obligations to Lily, citing the DNA results. It was a last-ditch effort to strip Lily of the inheritance, to undo the very trust he'd once tried to manipulate to his benefit. Rebecca's stomach churned. Valerie stood up in court and delivered the most powerful speech of her career. Charles Whitmore fought for this child not out of love, but out of greed. Now that she is no longer his financial key, he seeks to abandon her. This isn't a father's motion. It's a coward's exit strategy. The judge agreed. Charles was ordered to pay restitution for years of misrepresentation and manipulation, and the trust, previously contested, was amended to grant Lily access under Daniel's guardianship if she chose to pursue it. On a rainy Tuesday, Rebecca received a final envelope. It was postmarked from a private holding facility. Inside was a letter, scrawled in angry, precise handwriting. You think you've won. You haven't. All you've done is rewrite history. But history always leaves echoes. One day, Lily will wonder why her father disappeared. And you'll have to explain everything. Your lies, your choices, the truth you hid. She'll resent you. Just like I resented mine. The tape may have saved you. But blood always comes calling. It wasn't signed. But Rebecca knew the handwriting. That night, Rebecca held the letter over the kitchen sink, lit a match and watched it burn. She would not let Charles haunt them any longer. She turned to Lily, who was curled on the couch reading. Do you want to change your last name? Rebecca asked. Lily looked up. To what? Keller. Or Evans. Or whatever you want. Lily thought for a moment, then smiled. Evans. That's who I am. Months passed. Daniel visited often. Not as a replacement father but as a friend, a guide. Rebecca and he never rekindled romance, but they developed something quieter, deeper. A mutual respect forged by years lost and a future still possible. Lily thrived. She returned to school. She started therapy. She began drawing again. This time not just trees and shadows but cities, stars and girls with wings. Rebecca's YouTube channel, once dormant, saw a quiet resurgence when she started narrating stories of survival, mothers and daughters, and the truth that saves us. She never told the full story publicly. But every time someone asked her how she stayed strong, she smiled and said, because one day, a little girl stood up in court, told the truth, and saved us both. Years later, long after Charles's name had faded from headlines and the Whitmore Trust dissolved into tax court obscurity, Lily was in college. One day, she opened a small lockbox under her bed and found the iPod, the one that had changed everything. She listened to the tape one last time. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. She just whispered to herself. That was the day I found my voice. Then she deleted the file. Some stories didn't need to be played again. They only needed to be remembered. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe to our channel to receive more stories every day. Share with us what you think of this story and tell us where you're watching from.